So let's go to the next section. And my question here is, how do we improve our metabolic health?
Okay, metabolic health is not something that is an acute event or it's not an infection. You may have acute manifestations in metabolic health, but you don't get a heart attack overnight. It's been happening all through, and it culminates, a metabolic state of illness culminates in a heart attack. So this whole process has been gradual for a long time. So in simple terms, metabolism means just conversion of food into energy or fuel into energy output. Like say we drive a car, you put some petrol, and then that petrol gives you energy. In the same way, the food that we eat, which we put into our body, is converted into energy. And that is how, we are able to do our physical activity. Even at sleep, your body still requires energy to breathe and to pump blood across the heart to work. And many cellular function takes place when you're asleep. So these are the areas which needs to be addressed in metabolic health. What we eat, how often we eat, what are the other supplements we need to eat, physical activity, and sleep. Now I'll go through each one in their individual headings. Content of the food. What we eat determines the hormones that are necessary to convert them into energy. Now a high carbohydrate intake will initiate the secretion of leptin and insulin, and then that insulin and leptin will lead you into a path of constant inflammation. And that's why we want always, as LCHF doctor, we advise reducing highly processed food and increasing the healthy fat, moderate proteins, because these lead to decrease in the secretion of insulin and leptin, hence reduced inflammation, and in the long term, we get a better metabolic health. The next thing is frequency. We as human beings are not created to eat 3 meals a day. That is why fasting is very important. Fasting is there in every culture. The benefits of fasting has been extensively adopted in all cultures from ancient times, whether they knew the pathophysiology or the benefits on a cellular level, they still were able to appreciate the benefits that came from fasting, and they put it into their culture. So intermittent fasting is very important in maintaining a good metabolic health. And along with that, we need to have micronutrients like magnesium, calcium, selenium, things like this, so that you can get from any basic supplement. Physical activity. Movement is life, life is movement. So you need to do some form of physical activity on a consistent basis to maintain good metabolic health. And sleep is very important. A very good restorative sleep is good for hormonal regulation and for avoid many conditions.
Okay. So suppose one is already on medication. Is it possible to wean off medications and become predominantly medicine-free on a daily basis?
What medicines are you talking about? Which?
No, like on a daily basis, stuff that we have to take for chronic illnesses, chronic medication. Is it possible to become free of those medications?
Yes, with the guidance of your LCHF doctor and based on your own motivation to get off those tablets, it's perfectly possible adopting a good, healthy LCHF diet to come out of your diabetic medications, reduce or even completely stop your statins, come off your antihypertensive medications you take for high blood pressure. They are all definitely possible. These conditions are reversible.
So now we'll go on to the next section about immunity. My question here to Dr. Vivian is, how can we improve immunity? Considering the present world pandemic situation, see, some people, they didn't even have symptoms, they got over it. Other than the test, they didn't even know they had the disease. It didn't even affect them. Some people got off lightly, just a slight cold, and they were normal, loss of taste. They were normal after a few days. Some people were affected moderately. Some people were affected very badly, and some even succumbed to it. Some died because of it. And some people who did not die immediately of the COVID infections and its associated diseases lived for some time, but then, developed further complications and died from something else later on, just in a gap of a few weeks or few months. So why was it different for different people? And how do we improve our immunity? How is immunity connected to our health? Are these two different things? Is health, metabolic health and immunity different, or is there any relationship?
If you look at all metabolic syndrome conditions, say insulin resistance or cardiovascular diseases like plaque formation, they're all associated with inflammation. Inflammation is the root cause of all of these problems. So if you reduce your inflammation, your body's innate immunity increases. So if you want to increase your immunity, it just goes without saying that all you need to do is to increase your metabolic health. We saw that metabolic ill health is inflammation. So metabolic health means a reduced state of inflammation. So your body is in a state of reduced inflammation. It's not on a baseline inflamed level. Traditionally, we all know that diabetes is considered as an immunity reducing condition or an immune compromising condition. People get frequent infections. Now, this is because there is an underlying inflammation happening in the body. The body is always inflamed, and insulin causes inflammation. And that is why we say all these metabolic conditions are inflammatory conditions which reduce your immunity. And if you want to increase your immunity, reduce the inflammatory metabolic conditions. If you maintain your body in a state of low inflammation, when you face an attack from another infection or inflammation, your body is well placed to deal with that. But if your body is already in an inflamed state, when something else comes, like say the COVID-19, which is also an inflammatory process, you get a heightened inflammatory response in your lungs. And that is what puts so many people in ICU, and people have lost their lives because of this inflammatory process in their lungs. So it's always better to maintain on a normal day a level of low inflammation, which translates into adequate immunity. All metabolic syndrome conditions like insulin resistance, cardiovascular diseases, plaque formation, and cancer, they're all associated with inflammation. Most people wonder what they can take to maintain a good level of immunity. And as I said, a good level of immunity doesn't come overnight. It is built into your body over a longer period of time. So taking adequate supplements, even when you're well, will meet the micronutrient demands of your body. And we may not be able to get all the micronutrients in today's fast-paced world with a variety of dishes. So it is better, and I'm here not promoting one supplement over the other. There's no conflict of interest here. You're welcome to take any multivitamin supplement that you can find. I would also at this time suggest bone broth. Bone broth is a very good source of calcium and magnesium, which are very important, as we all know, for development of muscles and bones and teeth. Heart muscles are also benefited from the good calcium and magnesium. Cartilage in the bone broth contains chondroitin and glucosamine that is very good to reduce inflammation in joints and bones and give you better outcomes in terms of arthritis in the joints. The collagen and gelatin are very good for skin and connective tissue and also for the alimentary canal. The gelatin has a lot of amino acids, especially glycines and proline. They're all important in wound healing and muscle regeneration, growth and repair. Also, a good exposure to sunlight and vitamin D synthesis is good, as is physical movement, exercise, and a good sleep.
Now it seems like the virus is not going to leave the planet, and there may be another wave. Or like Dr. Beda Stadler says, this may be seasonal, so maybe we are going to get it in the next wave or something. Then it looks like improving our metabolic health is the only way to improve our immunity and protect ourselves from getting the infection, or even if we do get it, we don't have too many bad outcomes. It just becomes like a normal flu virus, like a normal common cold. What do you think about that?
You're very right in that surmise. The statistics from the last 2 years have one thing in common: COVID and diabetes, COVID and obesity, COVID and respiratory illnesses, COVID and cardiovascular disease. They don't go well together. They're a deadly combination, and mortality rates in these groups are very high. And it just increases if you have a combination of these conditions. So it is always better for us to reverse and not be in this place. I think this is a good incentive for people, really take good care of their health and reverse their conditions and regain their health. There is no better time than now to take these conditions seriously. I would definitely caution against complacency in the form of, I have diabetes, my doctor has given medications, the blood tests are normal, and I'm just going to live the same way. But with COVID, diabetes is deadly. So it is better to be equipped before another wave hits us.
Some people, think, okay, we can just continue eating as we are doing now. We'll have highly processed carbohydrate, high levels of carbohydrate, and then refined seed oils, unhealthy fat. And then suddenly trying to improve their immune system by drinking some magic potion, this magic pill, this herbal supplement. So, there are a lot of these things on the internet saying, just this alone will help you increase your immunity. I mean, is that even possible?
Even normal logic would dictate that stabilizing and strengthening the immunity should happen not in terms of disease conditions or not when our body is fighting. These all should happen when we are in normal health to fortify ourselves against such attacks. So it's better not to eat foods that cause inflammation on a regular basis. And then when an infection or an inflammation happens, you are better placed to deal with that. It's like, strengthening your border forces or your defense forces before the enemy attacks. We don't go and scramble for soldiers after the attack has started. We always put our soldiers in the front line, even in peacetime. So preventative measures are more useful than trying to increase our defenses during an attack. That's the time when the person is at their weakest. That is not the time to be, improving your immunity magically. Long-term, consistent efforts to minimize inflammation is good for the body. You can't improve immunity and metabolic health overnight. It has to be a long-term exercise with healthy food, exercise, and good choices.
So for the long term, like Dr. Hippocrates said, let food be your medicine. Seems very valid.
Yeah. More so, let not medicine be your food. I've seen people taking 15 tablets just to stay alive.
Let food be your medicine and let not
medicine be your food. Yeah.
We may all need acute medical intervention. We may all need to visit the doctor in some point of time, but it is possible to be without chronic medication for the rest of our life.
Anybody can fall and suffer a fracture. You need a medical intervention, a surgery or whatever, and your body needs to undergo a process of healing. Now, this healing is always better if your metabolic health is good, because all the resources that the body needs are channelized towards the healing. They are not, distracted with trying to deal with cardiovascular disease at one side and insulin resistance and diabetes on the other side, and a fracture or an infection on the third side. Your resources they are scattered. You don't have a concentration of resources, especially in the healing process, going at one place. So I would say it is always better to be in a good place to then have acute conditions like that hit us. Our healing process will be quicker and more efficient and more predictable, leading to a good outcome at the end.
Oh, that explains why some people got off very lightly. It was just like a normal cold because the body wasn't fighting other things. It just fought off the viral infection and they got well in a couple of days or so. And some people, their immune system fended it off at first attack. So they were healthy. Okay, that your answer now lends clarity to why that happens with some people.